On this day, self-respecting people go out to dinner at a restaurant, not eat yesterday's leftovers. Stephanie felt that familiar burning sensation crawl up from her stomach when Patricia dropped those words like a judge delivering a verdict. 5 years of marriage, and her mother-in-law still managed to turn every special moment into a lesson about how Stephanie fell short of their family's standards. On this day, self-respecting people go out to dinner at a restaurant, not eat yesterday's leftovers. Patricia's voice carried that tone she used when explaining obvious truths to slow children. The lasagna wasn't yesterday's leftovers. Stephanie had spent her entire day making it from scratch, rolled the pasta herself, simmered the sauce for 3 hours. Their Miami apartment still smelled like basil and garlic, but one look from Patricia, and all that effort transformed into yesterday's leftovers. Trevor sat between them like a kid forced to pick sides in his parents' divorce. Stephanie watched him clench and unclench his fists under the table, his go-to move whenever Mom started her lectures about proper lifestyle choices. Funny thing was, when they first got married, Stephanie thought Patricia was just being protective, wanting the best for her son. But time had a way of clarifying things. The best apparently meant a wife who could afford restaurant dinners every time the calendar showed something more important than Tuesday. Stephanie stared at her lasagna. 3 hours of work, $20 in ingredients, and a piece of her soul layered between every sheet of pasta. Patricia saw only failure to impress. Something inside Stephanie clicked, not broke, clicked like a light switch flipping off. Patricia kept going with her speech about what real wives do for their husbands on important occasions. Stephanie listened with half an ear, watching Trevor try to become invisible. Classic Trevor move. When Mom attacked, he turned into furniture. "Your mother's right," Trevor said suddenly, and Stephanie felt something cold spread across her chest. "Maybe we could go somewhere next weekend." Next weekend, when payday hit, like their anniversary was some dentist appointment you could reschedule, Stephanie found herself looking at Trevor like he was a stranger. 5 years, and he still chose Mommy's approval over common sense. Patricia smiled like she'd won something. See, Trevor understands the importance of proper celebration. Proper celebration. Stephanie wanted to ask what was improper about cooking with love, what was improper about living within your means, but she knew Patricia would have answers. She always had answers, especially when it came to how her son deserved better. Stephanie stood up from the table, not dramatically, not making a scene, just stood up like she was going to grab more napkins. But instead of the kitchen, she walked to their bedroom, slipped off her wedding ring, and set it on the dresser. Weird how she'd always imagined if their marriage ended, there'd be screaming, tears, maybe thrown dishes. Turned out it was quiet, like flipping a switch. From the dining room came Patricia's voice explaining to Trevor how important it was to choose the right priorities in marriage. Stephanie listened and thought, yeah, priorities really were important. When Stephanie returned to the dining room, Trevor and Patricia were still discussing restaurant options for a proper anniversary celebration. They hadn't even noticed she'd been gone for 10 minutes. "I'm done," Stephanie said quietly, settling back into her chair. "Done with what?" Patricia raised an eyebrow. "With this," Stephanie looked at Trevor. "With a marriage where my efforts will never be enough because they don't come with receipts from expensive restaurants." Trevor went pale. "Steph, what are you saying? Mom was just what? Showing me my place for the 5th year running?" Stephanie's voice stayed level. "I made a beautiful dinner for our anniversary. I put love and time into every single ingredient, but apparently that's worthless because self-respecting people only eat in restaurants." Patricia opened her mouth, but Stephanie continued. "You know what? Maybe I'm not a self-respecting person by your standards. Maybe I'm just a woman who thinks love gets measured by effort, not price tags." Stephanie took a bite of her lasagna and chewed it slowly. "This is delicious," she said. "I'm proud of what I made. And if that's not good enough for this family, then maybe this family isn't good enough for me." Trevor sat there stunned. Patricia looked like someone had slapped her. Nobody had ever told her no that calmly and definitively. 6 months later, Stephanie was living in a small apartment near downtown Miami. Trevor texted occasionally saying Patricia didn't mean it that way. But Stephanie knew better. Sometimes people showed you exactly who they were, and the healthiest thing was to believe them.